Welcome to the A of the Lightness of Walking program for better balance and a pain-free walk. Now, when we're talking about A, we're talking about alignment, we're talking about awareness, we're talking about attention to how we move. And those are the big things. But in that alignment, we also want to know about the bones so that we get that natural alignment of nice, easy space between all of our bones that we had as children. Now, the deal is the fact that we have these bones inside us, but most of us don't think about it, right? So I want you to begin to see this skeleton as something that's inside of you. So I want you to feel, okay, so we've got the head, we know that, but I want you to notice all these ribs. I want you to notice this sternum, and I want you to notice this clavicle. And then the arms, if I turn you around, the arms and the shoulder blade, notice the size of the shoulder blade. Notice how far out it comes, how far in. Notice the shape. And many of you might not know, but this is not attached to any bony part. It's only housed in muscles. So therefore, our shoulder blade, when I ask you to move it, it's free to move unless we're overusing our muscles. And that's one of our explorations with awareness and attention to our movement, is how can we move the bones inside our muscles? Then I want you to pay attention to your spine and how we have this, what we call neck spine. And most of us, when we turn our head, we just think this is where we turn our head from. But we have this thoracic area too. And there's 12 of them. The interesting part about the thoracic area is they're attached to the 12 ribs that we talk about, we know we have, but we also call it a cage. And so it's really kind of an interesting area that we want to help you feel inside of you. And so then we have the lumbar area. And the interesting part of the lumbar area is that it doesn't want to rotate at all. The interesting part of the thoracic area is it can. But we'll talk more about that as we go along, but I want you to at least have a visual. We're talking about the pelvis, and the pelvis has two bones, one on either side. And in the center, it has the sacrum. We've often talked about the sacrum, I'm sure, and the sacroiliac joints. These are called ilium bones, and so you have the sacroiliac joint. But the other thing I want you to see is this, what we call ischium tuberosities, or the bottom part of the iliums, which are curved. They're rounded. And this is what we want to sit on. Now, sometimes we sit on the back and our tailbone goes down and we slouch. Okay, so we can slouch. But then we can also come forward on our sits bones, and sometimes we come too far forward and we have an overarch, which then gets tight. So somewhere along the line, we want to feel how we can, where we are on this sits bones, what we call sits bones, or the ischium tuberosities, and if we can play with that and find new ways to do that. Now, the thing about the pelvis is, again, this hip joint. These legs want to be free. We have a ball inside a socket here. But sometimes we get so habitually conditioned to be holding our leg muscles so much that we forget that this joint can move, and it wants to move freely. So I want you to have that picture before we start. Here's my buddy, the skeleton, my Mr. Bones, my buddy Bones, and please keep this in mind as we go forward.